Hello and welcome to another Win Daily Show. My name is Michael Rasile. I got my man Ghost here with me, and we are looking at the 8/25 Tuesday NBA DFS slate. Ghost, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well, Michael. I'm happy to be back after a week off. That's for sure. So
A
it's
week,
uh, it's nice to be back here with you.
a well-deserved week off, but I'm excited to have you back again. There's no one like my good man Ghost here, and we have an interesting slate, right? So it's we've been having, obviously we had all these bubble games, so we had about 5 or 6 games a day. Then we went to this first round, and it was routinely 4 games a day, which I absolutely loved. It was so much fun. Game starting at 1:30, ending at 11:30. You pretty much just get 10 hours of basketball all day, and it was great. But some of these series are over. I'm okay with the Sixers being out because they looked like garbage. We already saw Brett Brown has been fired. Fortunate or unfortunately, I don't know. Depends on where you like to stand on that one. But we also had your Toronto Raptors eliminating the Brooklyn Nets here. So hopefully we get a better showing from the Nets next year when they have, their team. But other than that, man, I'm excited. We still have a couple games for tomorrow. We have the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets. That over under right now is at 220.5. A little bit of that juice is towards the over, and the Jazz are favored by 3 points. So this series started with the Nuggets being maybe not heavily favored, but favored nonetheless, and it has swung all the way back around. We watched something historic. I don't know if you watched it the other night, but I was loving it. Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray both score 50 points. First time that's ever happened in an NBA playoff game where opposing players score 50 points. Spidey Mitchell is the third player all time to score 50 points in 2 separate games in a series. So these dudes are balling out, and I'm having so much fun. So I'm excited. Let's bring this up now to look at what we got for the night. We also just want to go over the most exciting series so far. We have Luka Doncic essentially by himself against the Clippers. Clippers are favored by 6.5, and that over under there is 235. A little bit of the juice towards the over, so more people think the over is coming. But how much fun have you been having watching these 2 series specifically so far?
Watching Luka Doncic out there is just pure entertainment. I mean, I think I watched his step back three to win that game, maybe at least 20 or 30
Oh yeah.
times since he's done it. So to see that live, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to actually be in Orlando to see something like that. But safe to say, I jumped off my couch when I saw him pull something like that.
Oh goodness. I was eating dinner. I stood up, started screaming. My fiance was very confused. I was like, "Did you not just see that? The dude dropped 40, double-digit rebound, triple-double, just an animal on a bum leg." So, I guess let's start there, right? Like we can go game by game, but let's just start there, man. I mean, are we just locking in Luka in all of these lineups at this point? Obviously, we understand the ankle is a little bit of a concern, but I mean, after that performance, you have to assume he's going to be balling out again, correct?
Yeah, I agree. It's hard not to go nearly 100% Luka on a slate like this. I mean, 2 game slates are tricky enough as it is, needless to say. But when you're looking at these stars that are close to the top, I mean, you have pretty much Luka and Kawhi virtually on a tier on their own, with no disrespect to what Donovan Mitchell is pulling out in these playoffs, and Nikola Jokic is out there doing his thing. If he was allowed to play 48 minutes, I'm pretty sure he would. And of course, we mentioned Jamal Murray, right? But starts right at the top there with Luka, and it's very hard not to virtually lock him into every single lineup. But as much as it pains me to say, I will have maybe a couple in some multi-entry fields where I do end up fading Luka. Not necessarily for a pure balance build where I'm grabbing a bunch of 6 to 7K guys, but more so where I'm kind of pivoting towards Kawhi or Donovan Mitchell and company there, because I feel like they'll probably come in at maybe a third or maybe even a half of the ownership that Luka is on this 2 game slate.
It's hard to fault people though. I mean, if you do play 100% Luka, again, if you're smashing 20 lineups, you kind of have to play 1 or 2 without him, but just 1 or 2, man. As we've seen, he's smashing value. He's doing everything that he possibly can. But we also have Kawhi, who's been absolutely fantastic. We have Donovan Mitchell, who's been fantastic. And it's really hard to fit all 3 of those dudes on the same lineup unless we're digging real deep into that value bin. But I still think, man, like he has been so much fun to watch just from a pure basketball standpoint. But it has been an absolute blast. And let's stick with that game. Obviously, we know what Kawhi has been doing. It's been absolutely fantastic. But Paul George, man, like playoff P, and now we're all starting to hear. I heard a couple playoff PPs. I heard some pandemic Ps, like lowercase p. Like there's so many poor nicknames that this guy is getting now. I mean, I have to assume his ownership is going to be crazy low because he has been absolutely useless. Do you think he finally turns it around, or do you think this is a trend that we're going to be seeing for a little while?
I'm fine with fading Paul George on a 2-game slate like this. I mean, if we still had our 4-game slate where he was sitting at 8,200, I mean, even then I wouldn't. I would have barely any interest, if any at all. But on a 2-game slate like this, where I don't know if it's his shoulders that are bothering him. I mean, after how many months off do they have? Maybe 3 or 4 with the pandemic that took over. I mean, you would think after 3 to 4 months that he would be fine, but I don't know if it's that's bothering him, if there's something else that hasn't gotten out to the media yet. But I find that hard to believe. He's there at virtually every press conference with a pound of ice, or who knows what else they have on there that are icing his shoulders and stuff like that. And rumors are that he's being taped up a lot and stuff like that. So I'm not going to be playing much Paul George, if at any at all, honestly, like this.
Yeah, I mean, I heard this? I was listening to Zach Lowe's podcast. Did Kawhi Leonard take a step down, going from Pascal Siakam to Paul George? Now you don't have to answer because I think I know where your bias lies. But let's be honest, man. Pascal Siakam's absolutely fantastic and has been this entire time. Obviously, we know what Paul George has done. I'm confident he'll get out of it. But if he is injured, it's a good question to ask. It's a good question to ask, Ghost.
It's not something that you would have thought a couple months
Right?
ago. Would you be having a conversation of Paul George versus Pascal Siakam? And like you said, I'm a little bit biased, so I'll kind of deviate from the question a little bit there. But it's just been tough to see him. I mean, over the past couple games, I think he shot like just under 29% from the field, and he can't seem to hit a shot from deep. Even his free throw percentage has been trending downward, and he's just not somebody that I have of any interest in this range. I mean, seeing a guy like Jamal Murray that's there $200 less than he is, to me, it's I find it very hard to have an argument to play Paul George, other than the fact that he's going to be virtually unowned.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing. If you're making a million different lineups, you have to put him in a couple just in case. But I agree with you; he's going to be very, very low owned. Let's just stick with this Dallas Clippers game for a couple more seconds. Kristaps Porzingis. I know our good pal and owner Jason Mizrahi was not super happy about the KP news, but what did he burn you at all this past
Guess
slate?
who? Guess who told Jay to play Porzingis on
Oh,
that
guess who's
on
getting
that
fired
slate? So
soon?
yeah, but needless to say, I had a ton of Porzingis, and the guys were asking me questions in Discord, and I said, hey, if I don't answer, it's because I went for a run to blow some steam off, because I had so much Kristaps Porzingis, and lock at that game was 3:30, but tip off was only at 4 Eastern time, and this is exactly why all of us keep saying, please move lock closer to tip time in a situation like this where bubble games don't exactly start right on time.
Yep.
And I remember seeing that message at roughly, I think it was like 10 to 4. So like maybe 3:45, 3:50.
Oh,
It was 15 to 20 minutes after lock. And I see Kristaps Porzingis as a late scratch. And I was just shaking my head. And I was like, you know what? It's time to get out of the house and
yeah.
just blow this one off, because that one made me extremely frustrated.
Toss that one up to the DFS
Yeah.
gods. But how
Yeah.
do you feel about the rest of this game? Is KP a guy you're going to go back to now that he obviously had 3
Oof.
consecutive days off? He's had 3 consecutive days off, and we've seen what he's
Man.
done. Like, are you going back to that well?
Oof. I don't know, man. How are you gonna do this to me? I mean, look, he's a guy that could definitely dominate in a matchup like this. Neither Zubac or Harrell really feel all that comfortable getting out to the 3-point line in order to guard him. And with Paul George, maybe he won't even be able to raise his arms, given how bad his shoulders look out there. But again, he's a guy that gets out to the 3-point line. He's virtually unguardable, at least against this Clippers team, because they don't really have anybody to match up against his height. And and his wingspan. So I would feel comfortable locking him in if we get news maybe way before lock. But again, this is the 9 p.m. game, so um, it's tough. A 2 game slate. If you're playing cash, I would advise not to, considering that there's pretty much nobody to really pivot to in that spot. I mean, other than the fact if you have $900 left over and you're not playing Kawhi, then and you have the luxury of pivoting from KP to Kawhi, but if you're playing KP over Kawhi in the first place, I feel like that would be the wrong decision on a 2 game slate. So right now, again, it's similar to Paul George, but I wouldn't stoop that low where I'm not having any interest at all. But KP's main attraction here is that he's probably going to come in underowned, mainly because of what he did to the industry last game, and primarily because in that range again, with Kawhi only $900 more, and then Jamal Murray being $1,100 less. With his whole injury situation, I feel like KP might not be drawing as much ownership as he would be if we got that message at, say, 9 a.m. saying he will for sure play. You have our word.
You have our word, because we know
Yeah.
how far that goes in the NBA.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of some value from this game, I mean, we've seen Seth Curry ball out. We've seen Trey Burke do his thing. Maxi Kleba has hit some shots. Boban, your boy Boban, has been fantastic in certain situations. I mean, I feel like there's some pretty great low, some value opportunities. Who are some of your favorite from this game?
You definitely named a couple of them. I mean, both Seth Curry and Trey Burke have a lot of appeal on a slate like this. I mean, again, if we were back to these 4 game slates where we would have the Boston matchup and the Toronto matchup on there, I would say, you know what, maybe there are some other pieces on there. Like I know Norman Powell's price was constantly floating around that of Seth Curry, and we've been talking about that in Discord, and luckily he went off last game, so that definitely paid off for the Win Daily family. But on a 2 game slate, there's a lot of guys that stick out here, and I'd be comfortable mixing and matching guys like Seth Curry, guys like Trey Burke. Not only can they score, but they do get enough minutes in order to see that value pay off. A guy like Boban, where when he's out there, he's a fantasy point per minute machine. But again, if he's seeing 9 to 10 minutes out there on the floor, he's not exactly somebody that I have too much interest in. But yeah, Seth Curry, Trey Burke, Ivica Zubac is again way too cheap. I mean, it seems like both DraftKings and FanDuel refuse to raise his price, and for a starting center that consistently gets at least 20 minutes, he's somebody that I'm comfortable playing, especially if you're struggling to find somebody in that center slot where you're not going with Porzingis. Maybe it's because he burned you like he burned both Jason and I last time, or maybe it's just because you prefer other studs. No matter what your reason is, a guy like Zubac is a great play, especially in that center slot over on DraftKings. Maxi Kleba, again, as long as the minutes are there, I'm comfortable with it. But if you have the lineup construction where you're going under the game theory that Porzingis will play, that kind of takes me off a guy like Maxi Kleba. But again, honestly, like this, anything goes. And then my other 2 options would be below the 4K range, actually, to be able to get a guy like Reggie Jackson and Landry Shamet. I mean, both guys see a decent amount of minutes. Reggie Jackson's have been a little bit more volatile than I would like. But again, for a guy that is pretty much intertwining with Lou Will out there, you could kind of make a lineup where the game script is like, hey, you know what, maybe the Mavericks actually run away with this one. Maybe who knows, you're taking a chance on fitting Lou Will because, hey, knock on wood, he doesn't get injured there. You never want to wish that upon a player, but let's say I'm fitting Lou Will because I'm taking a chance that he's getting injured, or maybe he just doesn't play a lot of minutes. Let me go with a guy like Reggie Jackson. I'm all for that, and both him and Landry Shamet can nail some shots from deep. So both of them make for some good plays under that 4K range.
It is. It's been such a fun series, man, and I don't want it to end. I want this to go 7, and I want Kawhi and Luka to just duel it out in that fourth quarter of that 7th game, man. That would be so much fun. But Lou Williams showed out last game too. He scored over 30 real points, so he did his thing. So I'm excited to see the rest of this series. Let's hop over to the Utah Denver series. As I said, it is now Utah's to lose. I mean, they're up 3-1. They are favored in this upcoming game. We've seen what Donovan Mitchell and what Jamal Murray have done last game, both scoring 50 points. First time that's ever happened. I think it was the first time two opposing players scored 40 points against each other in a game. And then they both were just like, well, let's just take it to the next level. And they both score over 50, which was absolutely incredible. Now, Jamal Murray's was that 3 at the buzzer when they already lost, but I'll still take it. I don't care. In that case, I mean, those two guys, obviously, again, Jamal Murray's price, very weird. Donovan Mitchell's price, a little bit more in line with what he's been showing. How do you feel about the top half of these players here and some more of these studs?
Probably I mean, again, if you're running 150 lineups, maybe even 20, I would definitely have exposure to all of them. But for your single entry builds, or if you're running a couple lines and a 3 max, even at that point, I would have at least one Donovan Mitchell. But my guy at this top range would be Jamal Murray. In order for Mitchell to hit that plateau again, you're gonna pretty much need him to hit 50 plus actual points, not DraftKings points, but you're gonna need him to drop 50. And going into a DFS slate where you're like, hey, I need my guy to drop 50 in order for him to at least come close to his value. I don't want to say it's a recipe for disaster, but it's definitely not something that's wishful thinking, right? So I mean, Donovan Mitchell could have a great game where he ends up dropping 35 and 5, which is much more aligned with what he usually does. And even at that, he might hit 5 times his price. And if you're paying 10K for a guy, especially with Kawhi that's there for only $300 more, I'm not too comfortable paying 9,700 for a guy like Donovan Mitchell outside of 150 max tournaments. And again, if you're running 3 maxes and stuff like that, I would definitely have at least one. Who's to say that he dropped 50 last game? Who's to say he doesn't drop 60 this time? I mean,
Right.
the guy's been lights out in the bubble and especially in the playoffs. So I'm all for having some Donovan Mitchell. Jokic is a guy that the offense virtually runs around him and Jamal Murray, and especially their pick and roll offense. And he's a guy that can hit a shot from deep. He's really good around the rim on both the offensive and defensive glass. So he'll get you points in virtually every facet of the game, and especially if you're not going with Zubac at center. Again, that the center position on DraftKings honestly like this is very, very tough. So I feel like if we had other targets at that center position, then Jokic's ownership would be slightly lower compared to that of Luka and Kawhi. But again, with how tough that coveted center position is on both DraftKings and FanDuel, look for Jokic to really pull some ownership, and that's something that I'm not afraid of fading, especially in those large field tournaments. Jamal Murray is my guy here. He's a guy that I expect to come out slinging early and often. He's going to want to get his shot dropping really early into the game. Look for him to be pulling up from deep, the mid-range, everything, getting Jokic involved in the offense as well as other teammates. And sitting there at 8K, it's an absolute no-brainer for me to pull Jamal Murray. He really separates from the pack here.
It is. It's just very confusing to me. I don't know who's drunk over at DraftKings, but we appreciate it, man. We appreciate it. So, in terms of some value plays in this game, because there are some. I mean, we're looking at Jordan Clarkson. We know how many shots that dude takes. I mean, Royce O'Neal is one of Jason's favorites. He brings him up all the time. So, who are you looking at? Even Mike Conley. I know 6,700 is not really value, but he was lights out last game as well. So, who are you looking at in terms of the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz for this game?
I mean, I wouldn't be a good coworker, let alone a good friend to Jason, if I didn't mention Royce O'Neal. I mean, he knows I'm high on him too. And sitting there at 4,500 again, is he a guy that's gonna break the slate and get you 60 plus points? Absolutely not. I mean, unless he's the one man in the rotation playing against some younger kids or something, I don't ever see him dropping 60 DraftKings points. But sitting at 4,500, we are going to have to find some value, and he's a guy that definitely brings it. I mean, if he's active on the glass on both the offensive and defensive end, and you know what, he can score a couple points, especially in transition. Royce O'Neal is a guy that I will definitely have some shares in both single entry contests, 3 maxes, 150 max large field tournaments. No matter what your contest is, I would definitely feel comfortable with my Royce O'Neal exposure. At the same time, you mentioned Jordan Clarkson, and I find it really interesting because with Mike Conley back into the rotation, people kind of came off of Jordan Clarkson, but nonetheless, he's still that sixth man off the bench for them, and no matter what, he's a guy that's going to be involved in the offense. He's not out there to run to the corner and do nothing. He's a guy that's going to have the ball in his hands virtually all the time, and if he doesn't, it's because Mitchell has it, and they're constantly feeding off of each other, right? So look for Jordan Clarkson to kind of get involved early on here. And again, if you're making a lineup construction tomorrow based on game theory, which is something that would definitely be a good idea on a 2-game slate, because that way your plays all have correlation and your lineup ends up kind of tying together. If you're making a lineup based on like, hey, I don't want Donovan Mitchell because I think Utah ends up pulling away from this one. So and you know what, Mike Conley isn't getting any younger. Let me get some Jordan Clarkson shares. Then that would be the perfect game script for a guy like Jordan Clarkson. I mean, if they end up seeing where they go into the fourth, where they're up by 10, they're up by 15, something like that, even though a 10-point lead against a team like, let's say, Golden State, where that can be erased in the matter of seconds, you never know what Utah's going to think. So I'm all for playing a guy like Jordan Clarkson, especially if you're fading Donovan Mitchell and or Mike Conley. Other than that, the Denver side doesn't really have too much appeal to me here. Guys like Monte Morris and Jeremy Grant and even Michael Porter Jr., I don't really consider him a value sitting there at 5,700, but we could include him in the conversation as well. I don't expect them to get a lot of touches down the stretch, and that's really what you're looking for in games like this. You have Utah up 3-1. You know that Denver's Mike Malone's going to run his starters into the ground, and if like we take Michael Porter Jr., for example, if his shot is not dropping early and often, it would not surprise me to see him sit at the end of the bench. Jeremy Grant's going to come in and that's it. So a guy like that doesn't really appeal to me. I mean, again, in those 150 multi-entry tournaments, why not take a couple shots on virtually everybody on this slate? But in my main lineup, I will not have any Michael Porter Jr., that's for sure. Look for Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic to really take over this game and try and get one back for them.
I want to see that, because I want to see this one go 7-2. Give me all the game sevens, man. I'm all for it. We had the Thunder Rockets, now it's tied 2-2, so that's going to be fun. It's been an absolute blast, but it's that Clippers Mavs game. So we have to give it to the people, the 3 stars of the night. I think this one's going to be pretty easy. I've taken Luka, I think the last like 4 times I've done this. I'm just going to ride him into the ground as Mike Malone does. I'm going to have to go with the assumption that you're probably on Jamal Murray a little bit.
Yeah,
Is that
I
okay?
wouldn't. I wouldn't be a good Canadian if I didn't take my fellow Canadian there. So I'm going with Jamal Murray sitting there at 8K. It's a virtual lock for me on a lot of my lineups.
All right, then who's our value play, man? Where are we going to find a little bit of savings so that we can have Jamal Murray and Luka in the same lineup just to cash it home?
I mean, again, we touched on a lot of them. We mentioned Trey Burke, we mentioned Shamet, Reggie Jackson, Royce O'Neal, Jordan Clarkson, Seth Curry, Ivaka Zubac, all these guys. But I'm not going to go too low here. I mean, because there are so many options to the point where I would pretty much say mix and match a lot of them. But in the mid-range, I would like to recommend Lou Williams as our third play of the day. He's a guy that's going to be involved in that offense as much as possible. And with the Clippers probably feeling like they should have won that game 4, this is a very important game 5 for them in a situation like this. And I'm expecting big things from Lou Will here. Doc Rivers trusts him a lot. He's going to be getting all the crunch time minutes. I'm expecting big things from Lou Will at that price tag.
I love it. Luka, Lou Will, Jamal Murray, fellow Canadian, to our good friend Nick Ghost. Nick, man, this is absolutely fantastic. Ghost, we appreciate the heck out of you. Where can everyone find you on the internet?
At DFS_Ghost over on Twitter. And of course, with the Win Daily family in Discord. Make sure you guys come and join us.
Make sure you come and join us. WinDailySports.com/learn-daily. You get everything on the site for free, and that includes getting to talk to Ghost whenever the heck you want in our expert chat. But you also get his projection model, which has been absolutely crushing it. You get all his articles, which have been absolutely crushing it, as you've seen. I mean, it's been pretty good. We have our good friend Mitchell. He took home, I think, $6,500 this weekend. So shout out to him. So we appreciate the hell out of Mitchell and what he's doing. Of course, Adam as well is on the team over here. We got David Stowe. It's a fantastic team, a lot of good people. You get access to all of them, all their articles, the projection model, the optimizer, all of it free for 3 days. So
Brian's back this week too.
Man,
so we're happy to have him back.
It's been like
as well.
3 weeks since he's been on the team, man. I love him.
Yeah, he's back.
It was his birthday, but man, we missed him. But thank you so much, Ghost. You can find me at Michael Rasile1. Make sure to follow us at Win Daily Sports. And we all, of course, hope you make it a very profitable evening.
I don't want all that drama up here.
Yeah, that ball family. That's a whole nother conversation. I don't want to dive too deep into that one. But we are here to talk about the 4-game NBA slate. We got Toronto and Brooklyn. We got the Denver Nuggets and the Utah Jazz. We got Boston against Philly, which hopefully that series is going to end pretty soon because it's been ugly. And we have the Clippers and Dallas to round it out, which has been my favorite series so far.